couple things. You're going to need pattern page number 6. And there is a schematic also in your pattern. And this is going to kind of help you see where all the little pieces go, how they layer on top of each other. So you want to find that. And then you're going to need your center, which is your OP color, your I and your K for each of the flowers. This is my yellow flower. This one is my orange flower. This is the K right there. And the I. And this is my berry flower. And so those are things we're going to use right now to build the center of our flowers. I'm going to make this, and when I put this on the flower, you will see that instantly, now it's not really, that color is not really good on this, but it definitely has a 3-dimensional look because of the dark shadows right here and that dark black that's in the middle. But the dark black's not just the main player here. He's surrounded by these lighter colors. And so the black recedes and the light comes towards you, and that's what gives it a 3-dimensional look. When I laid my pattern out, in fact, I'm going to put it back on the white so you can see it. When I laid my base center pattern down on my fabric, the fabric, look at this fabric in the back. The fabric back here was a mottled fabric. And even though it's subtle, this is what I do a lot of times. Let that fabric work for you. It's your paint. But on this fabric, it was darker down in this area, and it's lighter up in this area. So that's what you want to do when we lay out our pattern. We're going to do a fussy cut, okay? And here's my pattern piece for the center. This is the P and the O. The O is the darker area. And do you see this little dotted line right here? And we want our lighter area of our mottled fabric to have the lighter up here and the darker down here. That gives us one more 3-dimensional look. Each one of these lights and darks, using the values in the right way, give the flower that 3-dimensional look. That's the most important thing. If you were using 2 fabrics, you could piece them together by fusing them right where this line is and have your lighter color at the top and your darker color at the bottom. But in this case, we're going to use one fabric like this mottled fabric. And you see how it's lighter over here and it's darker over here. So I'm going to put the darker part of my pattern here, and I'm going to put the lighter part over here. So how do we do that? I'm just going to rough cut this out. Lay my fabric back here. And where that dotted line is here on my piece, I'm cutting it. So I'm saying it's darker, kind of splits it right here. So I want the lighter area. And then I'm going to use this as my darker area. So I'm going to take this wavy little line right here, and I'm going to put it right like this. And then I just kind of hold it. Yep, that looks light. That looks darker. We could even go down a little bit more. That's light right in this area, and that's dark there. We can play around turning it a little bit more. I think that's going to work. Maybe a little bit darker down there. Okay, let's do it like that. That looks good. Okay, so now let's see. We got light there. We got dark there. I'm putting a pin in it. Or let's clip it on. Winter clips work just as good. I'm going to cut this one out, and then I'm going to take it and I'm going to place it on the orange fabric. And here is my light somewhere in here, and here's a good dark, or here's a good dark. It could be turned, and here could be a good dark. You could have the dark on here, and then this all be your light. Okay, and then let's look at the yellow. Here's the one for the yellow, a whole different subtle color, but we could use this as the dark, and we can use this as the light, or we could change it around. Sometimes when you turn your fabric, you can kind of see a little bit more. So we'll lay that piece on here and try and find which is going to be our lightest area, which is kind of in here. And this is really a dramatic dark. So we may play around with that one. OP, this is your M, that's your B, this is your K, and this is your shadow, the I. And you have this schematic also in your pattern, and this is going to help us to know where to put this. This is like the middle line right here, and you can see it's not on the middle, it's up above a little tiny bit. So this kind of helps you how to arrange it. And then down here I'm showing you where the little black K curly pieces go, and then how I have arranged the pollen. I've been growing a lot of zinnias. I found that the pollen really isn't around the outside edge. It's really in here. So the pollen can be arranged however you want, but I like to put that on last. I'm going to fuse my fabric, and I'm going to lay the eyes on the eye. And then we're going to fuse our blacks, which is our K, and they're all black. Some people ask me, well, could I use a navy blue or a chocolate brown? My answer is no. Black does black best. So here I've fused my 3 black fabrics for the 3 flowers, and I'm going to take my pattern piece K, and I'm going to pin it on this or wonder clip it, and it's ready to go. And now I'm doing the same thing for all 3 flowers for the eye fabric. I'm laying the eye fabrics on top of each other, and then I am pinning on the right side. All the pattern pieces, remember, go pin to the right side of your fabric. Make sure that all 3 layers have fusible web covering the pattern pieces that you're pinning on. I've gotten my B fabric, and I found a little place on the B fabric that I could pin that little center wedge. And then I went and got my M fabric. I rearranged the pieces, and I also put my little M. I call that the little spider. I put the little spider right there on the M fabric. And now the cutting begins. And here I'm cutting out just 1 fabric at a time. I'm cutting out the berry, the center for the berry fabric. This is the OP fabric. Then I'm going to take my pattern piece, and I'm going to lay that on my OP for my orange flower and my OP for my yellow flower, and cut around it. So I will then have 3 OP fabrics for 3 flowers. Now I have all 3 flower centers done, and now the layering process will begin. Okay, here we go. I have all 3 of the parchment papers layered on top of each other for all 3 flowers. And what I've done is I've gone around, and with a permanent black Sharpie, because this is parchment paper, it has a tendency to rub off because this is like a non-stick surface. So I'm using a Sharpie marker, a permanent marker. And what I've done is, and we'll go in close so you can see, is I took and I identified all of the petals. Look over here. I went around the outside edge, and I identified that this is petal number 9. This is 11, 10, 9, 8, and I did it on all of the layers. Okay, I went through and I numbered all of them, and what I did is I lined up my flower. I lined up my flower with the layout guide like this, and then I went underneath and I peeked. Oh, that's number 7, so I put a 7 right at the tip here. So now I kind of have a compass. I kind of have a bearing on which number is where. That's going to help us when we start layering our flowers. So right now I have them just on top of each other on their parchment paper. So I have assembled everything to build the flower, and I have my schematic over here. I just want to show you, I may not have explained this right, but on your schematic, this is layer 1, and then this is layer 2. Okay, so we're doing layer 1 right now. And we're going to do the eyeball technique. Yes, I said that. In art, you do a lot of eyeballing. So that's what we're going to do here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see this schematic right here on this. My little hairy spider, I call it, is not laying straight on. It's laying to an angle. So I am going to place that. It goes somewhere right in about like that. If you are up like this or down like that, guess what? It doesn't matter. I know. Some of you are freaking out right now. Anyways, I'm going to place my little hairy spider right there. I'm kind of looking at this line. I'm looking at this schematic. That makes me happy. Then I'm going to place my little, this is my bee color. And my bee color, take the fusible web off. My bee color, I'm going to look over here, kind of comes down like around here. And then my K, my K kind of comes up like that. See how this little black thing is hanging on that little curve? And then I'm going to adjust my B a little bit more. Okay. I think I like that. Now, you can do it where this is on top. See how I have that on top, which gives a little wiggly look. Let me do this up here so you can see. So I just kind of slide them up till you get them like you like it. I am going to pop that up. I like that little wiggle right there. I'm going to put that on. And look at that. That looks really good. So now I'm going to do the same for my yellow flower. And through the magic of television, boom, there you go. I've got a yellow. And now here is my orange, which I haven't done. When you lay them kind of going the same way, then it's easy to put that spider on because you know he kind of goes kind of like that. And sometimes a stiletto to kind of nudge things. When I have fingernail polish on, I find that it sticks to all my fingernail polish. So I use a stiletto a lot. Now look at this. We've got the center for all 3 flowers. Let's go put it on the flower, and then we're going to add our color eye. And I see something that I didn't do right here, so we're going to fix that. Now, because we haven't permanently ironed these all together, we don't want to do that yet, because we may have to lift up something and tuck something underneath. They are just steam pressed. Remember, I shot with my iron, I steamed it, and then I pressed it with my hands. So they're kind of sticking better to the parchment paper, and they're sticking better to each other. But as long as I don't hold this up, nothing's going to fall. So now I have put on, let's get the yellow one. Here's my yellow center for my yellow flower. Ooh, I like that. Now we need the money shot. The money shot is your color eyes. Okay, the color eyes. And I will zoom in here so you get I'll have my cameraman zoom in here for you. You can laugh now. Okay, so where is my other eyes? 4 pieces to make up the shadow. Now, it's looking like, you know, it is a shadow. And you'll notice also that there's a couple little holes. Maybe you might see some holes. Don't worry about that because we're going to just now cover all that up. So I'm going to take my centerpiece. If you have trouble getting the release paper off of your pieces, tear it, okay? The paper will tear, but the fabric won't. So you could go over here and go like this, rip. The fabric doesn't rip, but the paper rips, and you can get your finger in there and peel it off. Okay, you can score it with a pin also, but I usually can never find a pin because my table's too messy with stuff. So we're doing it down and dirty. Okay, so now I know that this little point right here, and I'm going to peek underneath my pattern. Do you see that little point right there? That's this point. And it goes in between my 35 and 36 petals. And there's my 35, there's my 36, so I'm putting them in something like this. And you can make them go a little bit more over like this, but you don't put them straight, okay? It doesn't look good straight. There's no straight lines in nature. So I'm gonna put them on where I want, even though I see I have a couple little holes. I'm not gonna worry about those holes. So now, let's get all this out. I need to find my shadows, which are color I. There's one. Yeah, there's another. Find them for this colorway. If you get lost, remember you go back to your color chart because your color chart is going to tell you where everything goes. Hopefully I didn't cut through something, but if you did, we're just going to fuse it back together. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to get my schematic out. Da-da! And this is going to show me how to lay my pieces. Let's move this over a little bit. There you go. Okay. So I know that this piece, and if you'll notice, it's half on the center and half on your flower. So this is going to lay somewhere like right about there. This one, if I can get the fusible web off, is going to lay something like that. And you can kind of play with them and move them around till you like it. I think I'm going to do it like that. Let's take the paper off. And I'm going to lay this guy kind of right around like that. And then I got this little widget right here. And I'm going to put this like that. And then the one little teardrop, because, you know, I wanted you to cut out really tiny. He's going to go something like that. Now I'm looking at this and he's got too straight of a line right here. Come on, get up. So I'm going to cut him like that. And there we go. Now that looks pretty darn good. Now we have these other little tiny black pieces. And if you'll notice, I have not cut them out. Because some of you, I've found, love to cut out this detail. Like, I'm going to hold this with my Wonder Cut. And I'm going to show you how I'm cutting through all three of these. Pinching it with my fingers. I'm just going around. And I'm cutting that little piece. He's not perfect. And they don't have to be. Okay, so now I've got all three for my flowers. I just need one. And I'm going to now look at this schematic and see that there's a bunch of little widgets that go along here, like this. Okay, now I'm going to save. I'm going to try and save these, so I'm going to clip them back on. Okay, and then I'll work on those in a minute. Here's the rest of them. Some of my girlfriends are like, oh my God, do I have to follow the pattern? No, you don't have to follow the pattern. Just cut something that looks like this shape and put it on. Each flower will be kind of different and it'll be unique and will look good. This is called free cutting, and we're going to do more free cutting here. We'll do a little more free cutting. Okay, I think this guy looks good right about there. Okay, and I'm going to continue with all these little pieces. But I'm going to also layer all three centers just like this. I'm going to take my iron black pieces on here. And then I'm going to steam this. And then I'm going to press it. I have not laid the iron on this yet. Okay, that's coming, but that's enough to hold it because I might have to lift some of these up with my stiletto and put some pieces in right in here. Okay, so we're keeping it movable. This is the fun thing about the Steam-A-Seam too. It's so forgiving. So here I've done the orange center for this flower, and I've cut out all the eye shadow pieces, and I'm starting to assemble them around the outside edge of the flower, looking at my schematic to give me ideas. And as I'm looking at it, I'm starting to see that I don't like the color eye that I've used with this center OP fabric. So my options are I either change the OP fabric and keep my color eye, or I change out the eye color. So I'm thinking it'd be easier for me to just fuse a darker value of the eye color. And if you'll notice, I'm laying them, peeling off the pieces, and I'm peeling them right onto that purple flower, purple fabric, I mean. And then I'm cutting them out. I think this darker value will help. So let's audition it and see what happens. So as I'm adding it on, I'm starting to see that yes, that's going to work. It's going to cast a better shadow. It looks really dark on this video, but it's not in real life. It was a shade of a deep purple, and you could see the purple and the striations in the fabric. So there I've put on this darker color, and that definitely works a lot better. So if you want to change your mind, feel free. So now I'm going to move my orange flower up and over, and I'm going to work on the berry. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing, laying the berry down. And then as I'm layering my color eye again, I am noticing that I'm having the same problem. The colors are too similar in value, and I think I'm going to need to change this. It just isn't doing what we need it to do. So it's time to audition again. And if I had ironed all this down, I wouldn't be able to audition all of this. But I found two colors. One is a purple, and one is kind of another dustier, darker purple. And I kind of go back and forth, but I think the true royal purple is really going to give a nice contrast. Being able to change your mind and get your flower the right way is why I love the Steam-A-Seam, that I can just stick it there and then I can change, audition new colors, and when I'm building flowers I do a lot of that. And so finally I think this is the color we're going to go with for this flowers. So here's all three flowers laid out on the floor so I can kind of see them. We've got our orange, we've got our berry, and we have our yellow. So here we go. You're going to need your schematic, and what it's going to help you with is to find petal number 27 or 32, or because there's a little rectangle on there and it has the number, because each of these petals are numbered. You can also, instead of just using the schematic, you can use your big layout guide, because it's big. It shows you the numbers. Each petal is numbered, and all the pieces have that same number. So if it goes on petal number 7, it will have a 7 on it. If it has an 8 on it, it goes on petal number 8, and so on all the way around. I think the highest number of our petal is 40 right here. Okay, so if you're working on just one flower, this is really easy to just look at your layout guide, find the piece, and then come over here and put it on your flower and just go back and forth building your flower. Okay, but if you're doing all three flowers, you may want to still stick with the little one. If it's hard to see those numbers, just write them big with another Sharpie marker so you can see it. Because, yeah, I'm going blind. But that's how we're doing it. All of the little pieces that we're going to cut out right now have a letter for what color to cut it out of, and they have the number. Like this is A9, okay? Which means I'll find that on petal number 9. Okay, this one right here, this one goes to C26. So I will find where to put these down on petal number 26. Do you get it? I have right here is I have my L's, my B's, my M's, C's, and A's. Okay? Or for those of you that like to go in order, I have my A's, I have my B's, I have my C's, and then we already put down the M, so I put the M's here, and I also cut out the L's because they were on the same page. Now we're ready to assemble. I have all of them laying, all of the flowers on their parchment laying on top of each other. Okay, so this is my M29, and I know it's going to go right here. And when I take this off, I realize, uh-oh, which color is it? Is it this one? Is that my M? Is that my M? That can't be my M. Or is that my M? So you go back and you get your color charts, and I can now see that that's my M for that flower. This is my M for that flower, and this is my M for the yellow flower. Okay, so I'm going to put this one on just like that. I'm going to go over to my 29 right here for my berry flower. I'm going to put that on. Okay, I'm going to go down to my yellow flower, and this is 29, and that's the one that goes right there. So the key is, if you get confused, you go back to your color charts, and they're going to tell you what color. After you do it like 1 or 2 times, you get the idea of how all the colors work, and it'll be a lot easier. Just refer to your color chart and your schematic if you get lost. I cut out my pieces and I put them on these little trays. They have batting on them. It's just cardboard. This is a B, it's color B, but it's petal 30. So I'm going to look at my schematic again, and my 30 is right there, which is right there. That's 30. Yes. And what's the color? Well, it's not, that's the yellow. And that's the berry. So, but this, B30 goes right down like that. And now I'm going to do it to the other flowers. Now you can see a better angle of how I have them next to each other. If you can find a place that you can lay them out like this, it makes it so much easier. And I'm just methodically going through one color at a time, laying them down, and it's working out really good. So I have put on all of my little A pieces, B, C, M, and L. They're all on all 3 flowers. And I have them laid on top of each other. And I'm just going to give them a light little steam, and then I'm going to go around and just make sure that everything's laying underneath. If I use my stiletto, if I have to lift something up and tuck something underneath. And then I have a pair of sharp scissors. If I have something that I want to just trim, I can trim an edge if it doesn't look right. Because sometimes when you're cutting, especially through 3 layers of fabric, there can be some wonky cuts. So if you want to neat stuff up, this is the time to do it before we go to our next layers. Shot, which is just doing my normal steaming and pressing with my hands to all three, just so they'll stay while I'm adding the shadows. Here's the D fabrics, and I'll get the D pieces, and we will do the same thing. Fuse each fabric and pin the pattern pieces to the right side of the fabric. So here I have all three fabrics for color D laying on top of each other, and then I pinned the pattern piece on top. And this is my color E, my color F, my colors, I should say, G and H. And so I fused all of them, pinned the pattern pieces to the right side of the fabric. If you have trouble finding where the H's are, they're on pattern page number 8 with the leaves, and that'll help you find those. So now I'm going to take all of these, and I just put 1 or 2 pins to hold the fabrics together, because you're going to need a lot of pins for this. And if you don't have them, what you do is you just use your pins on one color, then go put those colors on your fabric, on your flowers, and then it'll release those pins so you can use them for the next color. And I put a pin in each one or a wonder clip and cut out somewhere close to that line. Now, to keep everything organized, I started using these design boards, and I got the idea from Lori Holt, who's a pattern designer, fabric designer, and they sell them on the Fat Quarter shop, fatquarter.com, but I made some out of some cardboard. Batting is on the top. I fused some fabric on the back, and then I hot glued the binding around it. But these keep my colors kind of organized, and the batting causes them not to slip on the floor. So I put all my colors on these. I'm going to watch something stupid on TV, and I'm just going to sit and cut all these out and lay them on my boards, and then we'll put them right on the flower. So here I want to show you another way that I have been doing this. If you don't want to use your schematic, I'm taking my pieces and I'm laying them in place all together on my big layout guide here. Can you see that? And I'm laying them in place, and then I'm laying my flowers are right over here. So, and they're all in layers. All of them are on top of each other. Okay, so now you can try this. You know, it's a bigger layout guide, and it's showing you, it's a little easier to see, I think. So excited. Now all of my colors are on, and boy, they look great. Here's the thing you've been waiting for the whole time. Finally, we get to press our flower. And I'm just kind of adjusting all my little pieces, some little curves that need to be poked in. I'm just touching the tip of the iron before I start pressing. I've got steam in my iron. I start in the middle, and I pat, pat, pat as I work out. Now I've done the other flowers, and now it's time to let it cool. And now we can peel it up gently. If there's a piece that isn't sticking, I'm just going to take the tip of my iron and press it back down again. And then very gently slide my hand underneath the parchment paper and the flower and lift up, gently lift up so I don't dislodge any of my hard work. Moving around the flower and finally peeling it up. There you go. Beautiful. Now I'm going to do that with all the other flowers. And now here's a yellow. And I'm gently peeling it up. I go around and lift up all the outside of the petals first. And then you can peel it right off. And then it's time to press and do the orange. Same thing. Gently lift up. And here we have the orange flower. Now I've got all 3 flowers that we get to arrange and find just the right background fabric for. This is when it gets really fun. And if you have a lot of fabric around, which I know most of you do, this is the time where you can audition all different kinds of colors. I'm showing you what I like, but there is so many possibilities for these flowers. So first I'm trying it out on this hunter green, which looks great. The only thing about a green is you have to make sure that your leaf fabric stands up to it and doesn't disappear in the background. Then I try out this other dark black. It looks gray there, but here you can see it is really a black, and it has this little sunflower on it, which I love. And so I lay them out on this. And to know if it's the right color, and I do a whole color class for people, is basically you're looking at it and you're going to have a zing. If that you have that zing like, oh, I love this, that's the one that you need to pick for your flower. Here I'm going to try the greens, in which they look great. This one would work, no problem at all. But I want to try a couple others. So I stack them up. Let's try this chocolate brown and black. I love this fabric. A lot of times those warm browns really can make, especially pinks, pop. But I'm not sure about the warm yellow and orange. It looks good, but I'm not really sure. So let's see what the greens do. When I put the greens on here, they look really good on here. Well, here's another color that I had in my drawer. I forgot about, and it is a navy blue and a black, and it has like little seeds on it. And it has this blue, royal blue kind of overtone. Maybe you can see there, and I really like that cool blue with these hot flowers, the opposite on the color wheel, really. So here I put my flower on the floor, and you may have a bigger room than I do, but I get a lot better perspective of how I want to turn them. And if you'll notice how they're turning, each one, the berry flower is kind of turning over to the left. And then I took the orange flower and he's kind of pointing up to that right corner. And then I have the yellow flower and he's kind of pointing straight on, but kind of a little cattywampus. Okay, and so that kind of helps them look, even though they're the same darn flower, it looks like 3 different flowers. Okay, here's some of the greens that I've assembled to do, this is a pretty green, to do my 3 zinnias with. 2 of those. And these are the colors. If you bought the package, sometimes you have, I think you get 5 colors, but sometimes there's different values, different colors of greens. But all of these are going to work on our 3 zinnia quilt right now. Steam a seam 2. And I've just cut a big piece. I've removed the release paper that was on the fabric, and then I'm going to take my fabrics. You could iron out the wrinkles if you want, but I'm in a hurry, so I am going to lay them. If you'll notice, I'm putting the fabric on top of the fusible web, and then I'm going to smooth it out, and I can get pretty much most of those wrinkles by just giving it a little tug out. There's one. do another color. I love this color. And I'm going to butt them right next to each other. Pulling that wrinkle out, smoothing it out. That's good. Let's do this color. I have a video on how to fuse and how to deal with big pieces and get the sticky off all your tools that you can go look at. They're quick. They're short videos is really what I want to tell you. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I'm getting a variety of colors here. And if you'll notice, I'm also adding the fusible web on a hard surface. I'm not at the ironing board because the ironing board is too soft and those wrinkles will stay in. But if you're on a hard surface, you can lift these up and peel them and push them down a million times. And there I've got the wrinkles out. Now, you can iron if you want. That's okay. But this is how I do it at home. Okay, so now it's on the fusible web, and then I'm going to take my rotary cutter, and I'm going to separate all of these. There's one. Now, on this one right here, I want you to see that the fusible web is all around the outside edge. Okay, I cannot go iron that with this fusible here, so I need to take my rotary cutter and just get rid of that and get rid of this little edge, or you will get sticky all over your fabric, your iron, and whatever your husband wants to iron for work tomorrow. And so here, just cutting off those edges so that I know I don't have any fusible web. This one looks good. Nope, there's a little bit right here and one right there. Okay, now I've got all my fabrics. Let's go press them. Okay, here we go. So this is a lot of leaves that we're going to be cutting out and arranging around our flowers. So, you know, I kind of like to do things the quickest way possible. I like to make tedious quilts, but I also like to do things fast. So here's how I make my leaves. You could use the leaf pattern that's in the pattern. That is perfectly okay. But I'm just going to freeform, and what I do is I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to fold it in half. And then I'm going to kind of right here at the end, I'm going to go up and I'm going to make a curve. I'm going through 2 layers of fabric, and hey, that kind of looks like a leaf. You see how that's? So I'm going to take this one also, and from this point I'm going to curve out, go back to that point, and then over here start at this point and curve again that way. Sometimes I will go back and give kind of a little wiggly edge because that adds a little flair. Oh my gosh, do we love flair. Save all these little pieces because you can use these for highlights later. So I'm going to take my next fabric, I'm going to fold it, and I'm going to cut out as many petals and, as many leaves as I possibly can. Let's do it right here. Same. Let's see, yeah. Ooh, I'm saving all those bits. Now let's look at what we've got. I've got a variety, whoops, of leaves. Ooh, those look good. Look at that one. Whew, those are going to look great. Here's some big ones I did. Oh, I love that color, kind of that turquoisey green. Always gives a little sparkle. And here we have that yellow green. Wow, that didn't take me long to do all those leaves. But I need to do that probably 3 more times. Yeah, I know. Get started. So I have all my leaves cut out, more leaves than you thought you were going to have to do, right? But this is what's going to make that quilt look and pop. And so we have an assortment of colors. And now I'm just going to take my leaves here that I've all laid out. I'm just going to grab one and I'm going to go put it, lift this up, tuck it behind. See how easy that is? Let's do a couple more. Lift this up, tuck it. Now the only places that I press the flowers is I pressed them onto the background. Once I arranged them the way I like them, just right in the center, so they're sticking right in the center. I even though did put a pin up here just to hold it because you just need that little bit of security. I hope you have a design wall. And we're just going to start arranging. You don't want to have, you know, 2 exact colors across from each other. You want to kind of mix it up. And sometimes they can hang out really far like that. Sometimes you can just have a little tiny bit of color showing. But because they're just sticking here, it gives me so much freedom to play around. You know, I call this visual mathematics, and my husband and son think I'm crazy because there's no such thing, but I really do think it is because it's a balancing act. It's balancing colors so that it's pleasing to the eye. So that's what I call it visual mathematics. I'll write a book on it later, but. So I sped this part up so that you could get the idea without wasting more of your time. But any little piece that I have hanging over the edge, I will crop that later. And so I'm just arranging all the way around here, changing colors. If I don't like something, I just move it around. And you just keep building. Now I've cut these little wedges. Let me show you these little wedges. I've cut some little wedges from the scraps I used to make my leaves. I kept the scraps here. And then I've made these little wedges. And then I'm going to use them as veins. Like, where did I take this off? Like right in here. And if you notice, I'm not putting it right in the center. I'm putting them kind of to the side. And they I went back and I added some more veins at the very end when I was kind of critiquing my work. And I really think having a mixture of colors of the veins, lights and darks, mixture of values, really gives a lot of extra detail to your flower. Okay, so now I have all my leaves off, all my leaves on. So I should never be in television. Let me just tell you that right now. So anyways, here we have our 3 Zinnia quilt. We've completed it. You should feel very, very proud. This wasn't easy. I didn't want to tell you that at the beginning because you might have, you know, not hung in there with me. But this is a dramatic quilt. And I'm going to now press it and show you how I press it, and we'll go from there. Okay, here we are. We're going to press this, this quilt. We're going to crop it. Then we're going to get ready for stitching it. So right now I want to show you what I do. I have 2 extension cords on my iron, just like this, and I bring it right over to my wall. I am not moving anything that I've worked so hard on building until it's pressed down. And so I'm going to start with a flower in the middle, and I'm going to press going out, and I'm going to press going out. You want to pat it. I'm going to do the same down here. Start in the middle. We work out. Get your leaves. Same thing up here. Keep pressing. Now this is not your final press. You're going to do another pressing. So now I'm going to take this off the design wall and boom. I'm going to lay it upside down on my table, and now I'm going to give it another good pressing with steam from the back side. And I'm just giving it a really good press. This way, the purpose, let's just say the purpose of doing this is because you have all these layers of fusible web, okay? And if you only press from one side, the heat only goes down, penetrates only down so far. So if we flip it up, we can get that other layer, the heat can penetrate that layer and go all the way through, and then we are assured that all the layers are pressed together. That's why you get sticky on your needle. Right away when you're sewing and all of a sudden you see sticky on your needle, that's because you did not press the layers down enough. Okay, now if you've been sewing for an hour and then you start to get sticky on your needle, that means you've done a great job because you've been sewing, you made that needle hot, and it is attracted to the sticky, and it'll get a little sticky. You will never avoid, listen carefully, having sticky on your needle. You'll always have it on your needle. But I have tricks for getting it off. You do this. I know it's so hard. And the goo comes off. I also have a video to show you how to get the sticky off needles, scissors, pins, fabric, everything that you can watch, a short little video. But for this, you need to know that sticky is part of dealing with this kind of fusible web. And you can always go and re-iron it again and again, even while you're stitching. Don't be afraid to stitch over and over on your beautiful flower. I mean iron over and over on your beautiful flowers while you're stitching. Okay, because that's important. So now I have everything pressed and ironed, and now I'm going to crop it to the size I want, and then we'll layer it with batting and backing, and we will be done. Oh, no, I guess you remember. We didn't do the thread play on this, did we? Well, I have a video called Renegade Thread Play. It's a short video that shows you my basting technique, how to do one of the petals, how to do some leaves. I also cover in episode 5 of the Dogwood Quilt, I also cover how to do beautiful leaves, because you got a lot of leaves to do here that you may want to watch that thread play video also. Now, if you're new to thread play and you want to get better at it, because we all want to get better at it, the only way you're going to get better at it is to do it over and over and over again. That's how people get good. You just keep doing it. I have a class through the American Quilt Society at iquilt.com called Renegade Thread Play. It's a great beginner class to show you how I do my thread play. Remember, we are sewing. This is not grandma's quilting. We are sewing through thick, fusible web, making decorative stitches, shading and coloring with the thread. That's why I call it Renegade, because it's different. Okay, you can't do traditional quilting on this kind of thick, fusible fabric. So those are some little tips that might help you on your journey. And remember, the more you do this, the better you get. Ask any professional and they'll tell you, we just did it. A true star quilter has a closet full of ugly quilts. Okay? So I hope I see you again on my next class here on Melinda Bula Designs, and thank you for joining me.